Hey, you guys had a bunch of questions about mid-drive versus hub drive. While I always say there's no such thing as a stupid question, there's this one. We'll just leave that alone for now. But if you're a bike nerd like me, let's step into my office and let's dive right in. I'm Roshan, I'm the CEO of Biktrix, and today I thought I'll go through the comments on our most popular video, the hub drive versus mid-drive, and share with you my comment on these comments. Jetro XP says, favorite moment was when the red-headed beard guy was having a WTF moment when struggling up the hill as Alex effortlessly flies past. Hey, that's a real scene. He wasn't hired.
But I'm putting in basically no effort. I'm just going right up the hill.
That generally happens, and I'm sure many of you riding e-bikes have had this happen at least once, where you zip past someone and they're like, oh, what the hell? You know, how is he doing that? So, well, just blame it on the bionic legs. 6Kids81, nice, says, I'm ready to buy. Thanks for the video. Hub drive is great. Mid drive was too technical. I just want to chill. Hey, I agree. If you just want to chill, hub drive is the way to go. No thinking too much about shifting gears and none of that stuff. And which is why we actually have a quiz on our website. And on the quiz for selecting an e-bike, if you say anything other than you love gears, we're going to recommend you take a hub drive because it is going to be better for you. And it's much simpler to use. For beginner riders, it's totally the way to go. Here's a comment by TruthHurts413. He says he agrees that the hub drive is better at starting out and cheaper. Shifting does have an effect on the hub drive as he sees the watts drop when he's pedaling. And then he gives a couple of examples where he's riding downhill on 4th and 7th gear using about 124 watts at 28 miles an hour, whereas riding on the flat, pedaling 7th gear, he uses 300 to 500 watts. And then he goes on to say that hubs last longer, mid-drives are more expensive to fix or replace. And then he talks about a few more examples and so on. So a couple of things to clarify here is in our video when we said that the gears don't make that much of an impact on a hub drive, what we mean is that the motor itself is not using the gears to power.
Notice that when the rear wheel spins, the chain is sitting still. So hub motors work 100% independently from the standard bike components that you use when you pedal.
So the motor is fixed to the wheel, and as the wheel turns, the RPM of the motor is the same as the RPM of the wheel. It's geared inside, which is why you get the torque from these hub drives. But when you change your gears, that's just for your pedaling cadence. You're confusing a little bit between the effect of the gears on your pedaling and the motor efficiency. Honestly, regardless of what gear you're on, the motor efficiency doesn't change because the motor is just turning the wheel. But you can see better efficiency overall in terms of battery usage just because when you're pedaling, you're actually helping the motor. So it's like, if you were riding and somebody was pushing you from the back on the bike, you would get better range just because the motor is doing lesser work. That is what you're noticing. The second thing is you had said about hubs lasting longer, whereas mid-drive or crank drives don't last as long and they're more expensive to fix. The answer is this depends. I know that we have some hub drives that we sell. We actually sell hub drives and mid-drives. The maintenance on hub drives and mid-drives are fairly comparable. That being said, mid-drives can go through a lot more wear if you don't use the gears properly. So if the gears, when in doubt, these motors like to spin really fast. So you want to be on a lower gear, actually higher gear or lower cadence. You want to be in a gear where it's too easy to pedal, then it's definitely easy for the motor to power. In terms of maintenance, I think they're very comparable. Of course, a hub drive is better for a beginner because gears don't matter for the motor. They're designed to go around the wheel of the fixed size. So yeah, it can appear like hub drives are a little more long-lasting. Here's a comment from @Wooz, I think WUHLZ, Wooz, I guess it is. Sorry if I mispronounced your name there. So he says, I went for the mid-drive partly due to this video and couldn't be happier with it. It was exactly what he wanted. Feels like he has bionic legs. He also has a 25 amp hour battery, so he's getting about 120 kilometers of range with pedaling. He says he also has a throttle, which once you get to 6 kilometers an hour, he can use it, and he never actually uses it because he feels like he's pedaling like he's super young. We agree, we hear this all day, every day. People who have mid-drive bikes, they comment a lot on the performance. They love the performance of it in terms of range and the battery size. In fact, you can watch our video that we made where we rode 160 kilometers on one of our mid-drive bikes, which is actually a pretty heavy, the most powerful mid-drive bike that you could get, which means that it's not as efficient on battery power, but it still made up like 160 kilometers or 100 miles for those of you in the US, and it still had battery to spare. So like I said, I think using gears properly is super important with mid-drive. As you do that, you will just love how the mid-drive performs. So here's a comment by Adamas Old Blade, a cool name. He said, thanks for the video. He got into e-bikes or this person got into e-bikes in October 2022 with a hub drive and a cadence sensor. Worked great for 6 months, had some issues. He had to abandon the company, go with another one, and then he still went with a hub drive with a torque sensor, and it helped him a lot. He hasn't tried mid-drives yet, but this video helped him understand the differences. Hey, that's a great upgrade. You know, like all of our hub drive bikes that we have, most of them that we sell have torque sensors on them. For those that don't know, the key difference between a torque sensor and a cadence sensor is that on a cadence sensor, cadence just means speed. So it's looking at how fast your legs are turning around the pedals. So it's just looking at your pace at which you're pedaling rather than how hard you're pedaling. But if you think about biking, just riding a regular bike, you normally, like as kids, at least I used to stand up on the bike and pedal hard, you know, when I have to go up a hill, or sit down and leisurely pedal when I'm going down flats, and then using gears appropriately as I have to. So as you can imagine, on an e-bike, when this comes along, if it's only looking at how often you're pedaling, that would make for going slow really difficult on an e-bike, because, you know, as soon as you start pedaling, the controller's like, oh yeah, there's his RPM, let's give power. Depending on the assist level you've got, you start pedaling and the bike feels like it's going to take off. The thing is that a lot of people love that because they don't have the muscles required, or they have some medical ailment where they can't apply the pressure that they need. So, you know, a lot of our customers that have got hip issues or knee replacements, for example, they would prefer a bike where they don't have to pedal very hard to get full power. And for them, the cadence sensor works excellent. Where the cadence sensor doesn't work excellent is for people that are seasoned cyclists, where they jump on this and they're like, man, I'm not doing any work. I'm just like moving my legs and the bike's flying away on me. So that's where the torque sensor seems like a huge upgrade, because the torque sensor looks at how hard you're pedaling. So even on the highest assist level, if you pedal softly, so if you let go of the pressure you're applying on the pedals, the bike goes slow. And as soon as you step on it, the bike takes off. So this is really cool, because on a bike like any of our bikes with the Ultra motors from Bafang that we have, they all come with a torque sensor. I often ride with the highest assist level, and then I'm controlling full power with the amount of pressure I'm applying. So if I'm riding down trails, I don't have to, you know, always keep changing my pass levels. I basically control the whole assist just by how much of pressure I apply, which is why like a lot of technical riding bikes, the downhill, uphill, enduro bikes, all have mid drives with a torque sensor, because torque sensor gives you more control. You feel more control. But the downsides are, if you can't apply the pressure with your feet or your legs, then it can be quite a hassle. So for people with issues with their knees or hips, or any reason you can't pedal hard, cadence sensor is the way to go, and everybody else, the torque sensor is the way to go. The end of sanity. He says, my chain came off and got tangled in the middle of a 30-mile bike ride. Chain was destroyed, motor got me home with no problems. A mid-drive may be superior in many ways, but not in every way as the video claims. Hey, we didn't claim on the video that the mid-drive is superior in every way. If we did, we would be shooting my leg on my left, because I also sell mid-drives along with hub drives. I really want to sell both. I don't want to just like, you know, hide the hub drive somewhere and only sell the mid drives or something. Yes, we agree that if your chain breaks and you have no way to fix the chain while you're out on a ride, then the hub drive can get you home. Agreed. Point definitely to be noted. Randall Browning says, very informative video. He's concerned about mid-drives because he hears that it's easy to break chains. And what do we think of having a belt drive with internal shifting like Shimano Alpine? Actually, that's a great concern and a great question. So with chains breaking on mid-drives, most of the time the chains break because A, the chain is either not installed properly, or B, the chain is worn out more than it should be and it's still being used. Because remember, people ride e-bikes way more than regular bikes. So you might be riding, 2 times, 3 times as more as a regular bike, and that once a season servicing that you can take your bike to the bike shop too may not be enough. So you might have to replace some of those things when they wear. And C is that the motor puts out power to the drivetrain while the gear is being shifted. So all of these 3 things, among many other reasons, like a stick getting into your derailleur could bust some of these things too. But these 3 obvious reasons, chains can break. And one way to get around this is by using a belt drive or a single speed chain with an internally geared hub. The challenge there is the availability of hubs. Most of the hubs out there, Shimano makes some, SRAM or Sturmey Archer, they've been making some for 100 years, Roll-Off and Kindernay hubs. The issue with a lot of these hubs is that they're not rated for the power levels that some of these motors put out. So some motors put out 1,000 watts, 750 watts, 160 newton meters of torque. That level of torque is not supported by most of these internally geared hubs. But if we had to combine this with like a 500 watt system, 500 watt motor, or a 750 watt motor with say 80 newton meters of torque or 90 newton meters of torque, then an internally geared hub would totally work. We actually, in fact, have a bike called the Stunner, a Stunner step over and step through. It has a BBS 02 500 to 750 watt mid-drive motor with a Sturmey Archer 5-speed rear hub. We've not heard of anybody break a chain on that thing because there's no derailleurs, and even when the chain wears, it's still, it's not falling off and creating damage. So the same setup with a belt would work just as well. I think we're good. That's all of your comments.